Ready. Welcome everyone. The hour being 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. The Tooele City Council and the Tooele City Redevelopment Agency are meeting in a work meeting being held at Tooele City Hall Council Chambers located at 90 North Main Street. This is also being broadcast on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We will start with a roll call. Councilwoman Manzio.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall. Present. Councilman Graff.
Present.
Councilman Graff is joining us by phone right now, and I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm also present. We will move to item 3, which is the mayor's report.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Council. I have a few slides to share with you this evening. I wanted to let you know that last week I attended basically it was a Zoom meeting, but it was a land use review for attainable housing stakeholder committee kickoff meeting. Great big title of what that was, but the state is trying to get a handle on really what is needed for attainable housing, which I think we first need to determine what attainable housing is. We'll get to that point, but they shared some really interesting information. So as of July 1st of this year, Utah's population reached over 3.4 million. And that's really an additional 61,242 new residents were added to the state in a one-year period. And what I found was very interesting, and I had heard the governor allude to this at another meeting that we were at, that I'll bet like me 4 years ago, when we talked about growth in the state, we said, for those of you who don't like growth, then you need to quit having children because the growth is coming from within. And the numbers that I was told at the time was like 70% of the increase in population really was from within. But what information was shared at this meeting was that is no longer the case. In fact, for the past 2 years, it is really net migration. It is the migration of people moving that is higher now than the growth. In fact, right now, it says for the second year in a row, it's been 62% of the migration. So it's more than half, but for the first time in the history of the state, it's always been more of just us having children that live here more than are coming. So I thought that it was very interesting. They did share that some of this had to do with an increase in deaths from COVID and decreasing birth rates since 2008. And then just the net migration has been increasing since 2015. So I thought that this was really interesting to kind of show you there. If you look at the red, and the longer the red lines are coming down, or more people it's really the working age, 25 to 54, of the population from 2020 to 21. This is just a year. You can see in the United States, like I say, where you see all those big long red lines, that's where people were leaving. The blue sections are where they were going. So you can see that there's a longer blue line there in Arizona below us, even than what we've got in the state of Utah. But we know people are coming here, moving here. We have an awesome economy, and the jobs are here, and that's where they're coming. So on the next slide, they're telling us what we already know. It's just more grim, I think, than we thought about. In 2019, 49% of households in the state of Utah could not afford a median-priced home. In a couple of years' time, you see that it is now up to 76%. The median home price right now in the state of Utah is $493,000. That's the median price. But I wanted to compare it to a couple of other places. Idaho is $472,000, just a little bit less than what we are. But California, the median price is $834,000. So Maybe they pay better wages over there. I don't know. How could we can't even, 76% of us can't afford the median house price there in Utah, let alone California. The next slide is again, remember, this is based on data and what has happened in the past, and so these are very good educated guesses. They might not be exactly right, but close. But this is what is really scary. These are counties, not cities, okay? So when you look at Tooele, this is not just the city, it is the county. But from 2011 to 2020, 10 years' time, we built 3,585 units of housing in our county. But they are telling us in the next 10 years, we need triple that. Well, not all the way triple, but close. We need 9,135 homes. And I'll just tell you right now, I don't think we have water for that many homes. So that is just what the demand is. And that's based, I'm sure, on statewide numbers too. You can look at how much everybody else needs. It's scary. It's a scary situation. So we can have the great economic growth, but where are we going to live? And then this last one, this was a survey that was done, and where it says Baker and Wilson, those are not like real people. These are just the names they give to this. They used to use Smith and Jones, but I think Smith and Jones finally decided that they didn't like their names being used anymore. I don't know. They switched it to Baker and Wilson. I don't know where they got the names, but whatever. They didn't ask. I didn't ask Shiloh either. So, all right. So we have Baker that just this side believes that the growth in the state, it benefits us, and it's a great benefit to us. That's what those people voted for. The people on the other side believe that the growth in the state jeopardizes our quality of life. And you can see from 1994, when the first survey was done, people tended to think that we had a great quality of life and it's not affecting us. The growth is not affecting us. The next year it changed just a little bit. 2014, it changed the other direction. And if you remember 2014, we were coming out of that recession again, 2008, 9, 10, where everything was awful and we didn't have jobs and people were getting laid off. So 2014, it was like, hey, everything is great. And then a few years later, now everybody that lives here is saying my quality of life is being affected from the growth. So it's difficult on both sides, but it's happening. That is what's happening, and we get to deal with it. So we'll move on to something a little bit more happy, but I did want you to, I just wanted to share that information because some of it really did shock me. I was a little surprised at some of them. All right, the next one is our snow level. Up at Rocky Basin, which is up Settlement Canyon, right now our snow level is 138% of median. That was as of yesterday. And for your information, that is double at this time last year. But we are only in December. We still have January, February, March, and hopefully April to bring more snow to us. So we've got a really, really good start. We're excited about it, happy about it, but hopefully it will keep falling, and mostly in the mountains and just a little here. So that'd be great. All right, next slide. This year, Tooele City is going to celebrate. We're going to kind of have anniversaries or birthdays, whatever you want to call them. But in May of this year, our Pratt Aquatic Center will be 20 years old. The new building will have been opened 20 years ago. And so we will be, of course, having some celebrations to recognize that. And then the big celebration is Tooele City is turning 170 years old. Our anniversary celebrating our incorporation in 1853. So we have already begun planning. We will have an event monthly, if not more often than monthly, to recognize this anniversary of our city. So we're very excited about that, and we'll be getting that information of what all of those activities will be. And between our Parks Department and our library, you're going to see lots of fun stuff going on. So just be watching for that. And that concludes my presentation tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. We'll move on to item 4, which is the council members' report. We will start with Councilwoman Manzione.
Just one thing I'd like to report, that the Planning Commission chose their chair for next year, and that will be Tyson Hamilton. So I thought everybody would be interested in that. And I hope everybody has a great holiday. Merry Christmas, and thank you to all the city staff that have put together all the fun events that we've had. I think they've been awesome.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson.
Really? She stole my thunder, so yeah. And I think Chris has got like his, I don't know how many terms as assistant, but yeah.
Several.
9 is vice and 4 is chair.
Wow.
Yeah, so here he goes again. So anyway, but yeah, congratulations to them, and they do a great job. And I don't have anything else other than Merry Christmas to all you guys. I hope you have a good Christmas season.
Councilman McCall.
I would echo that again for the Planning Commission. A lot of good guys, and I know Tyson's going to do a good job, as well as the vice chair, who seems to know all the answers anyway, most of them. And then wishing everybody a happy Christmas, a Merry Christmas, happy, merry holiday. Just want to be politically correct. But that's all I have. I didn't have anything else.
Thanks, Dave. Councilman Graff.
It's been pretty quiet this past 2 weeks, but like all of you, I love this time of year, and I love how people are just a little bit more friendly. And so I'd like to wish you all and our good citizenry a Merry Christmas as well.
Thank you. And I'll just echo what everyone else has said. We appreciate all the staff and all that they do, and hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. We'll move on to item 5, which is our discussion items. The first one is a discussion on payment of fee in lieu of water rights conveyance request, Middle Canyon Commercial Subdivision RV Park and Burt Brothers. This is presented by Jared Stewart, the Economic Development Director.
All right. Hello, Council. We're talking about water a lot these days, which is great. So this is an opportunity to kind of talk through several new projects that have approached the city for requesting water fee in lieu of conveying that. So in your packet, you should have had some resolutions that we've drafted up. And in those resolutions, we've tried to ask all the questions that we've been discussing and that we've talked about in recent weeks in terms of putting together an equal question for all these applicants and trying to give them a level playing field in terms of what we're asking, and so we can get fair responses for you to be able to evaluate these projects based on the benefits that they do bring to the city. So the first one is the Middle Canyon Commercial Subdivision. You should have in your packet a draft resolution from them. They are requesting for 13 acre feet of water. There's an estimated capital investment of $42 million there. Creation of potentially 385 jobs with a mix of types of jobs there, being full-time, part-time, some management positions, and generation of new sales tax from retail development. And this development is retail. They are looking to develop approximately 730,000 square feet of retail, and they don't have tenants for these pads yet, so it's hard to calculate the exact estimate of sales tax. But they did give us a fair list of the types of clients and types of retail that they will be looking for. And that should be in your packet as well in their exhibit. So any questions on that particular?
Now that's the development going in on 10th North and Main between 2nd West and Main, right? Excuse me, my voice
Correct.
is funny, so. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to verify. Okay. I mean, I read all through that and
Oh, yeah, north side. It's not,
north side. Okay, north side.
Behind the
Okay.
car dealership.
yeah, sorry,
Behind
sorry.
Friday.
Yes, not the Kimball
Across the
project. Thank you,
street.
Jim. Yep.
Okay.
Are they requesting 13 acre feet just to start though, correct? And then after that, they'd come request additional water depending on the.
That's what I,
Yeah, correct. I believe, based on conversation with Rod Engar, who's requesting this, that they're requesting this so that they have what they believe will be enough water for their whole project. But as each of these individual retailers come in, they would calculate the exact water use for that retailer. The retailer would actually pay the fee in lieu at that time for their needs, and then so on and so forth with each of the retailers. And so we'd have a chance to kind of evaluate as that goes. We'd know if it was going to be in the ballpark of 13 or below or above.
So are they going to be offering some water up front to these retailers as they come in? I mean, part of the initial, and then let the retailer then come back and ask for more? Or like, what are they doing with or is this just for bathrooms or to get started? Do you understand what I'm asking? Because this is just a developer, right? So are they actually developing a business themselves that they are going to use that water in, or are they splitting it up per parcel kind of?
They would be splitting it up per parcel. Yeah.
So
my
everybody would get like
understanding.
1 acre foot to start, basically.
I think so, yeah. Well, and some, I think they would expect to need more than 1 acre foot because they have planned some larger, like an anchor tenant that would,
But
You
then
know.
that tenant would come back and ask for more.
yeah.
Right.
Council, let's keep in mind, however, that this is not an entitlement, this is not a security, this is not an instrument that can be transferred. We're not giving the developer something he can then sell to his tenants.
Right.
That's not how this works.
so it works that he buys it for the $35,000 an acre foot, this developer from the city. So then how does it work to the people there? He gives it as part of their lot? Or how? How does that work?
Yeah, I guess that was my question too.
Do we have to have that in writing somehow, that how it works? 'Cause
I do not.
we're not really saying how we do it. At least I don't think, I didn't read it anyway, how that works from him to the tenant or to the person buying as I read it, I think everybody's buying their property. He's selling it, he's not renting it or whatever, so he's got to sell them water or,
It might be helpful just to read maybe one paragraph
Okay.
from his request letter. So at the end of it, he says, once approvals are received, meaning the fee in lieu approval, the subdivision improvements on the plans will be built out and the sale of the 11 commercial lots will proceed. As the new business owners purchase their lots, they will submit their own plans for building and improvements. At that time, the accurate water needs can be determined for each business. Therefore, please include in this approval request the payment in lieu of water rights for any additional water rights that will be for their business operations. So the request would be that we maybe include some language, I suppose, in the resolution that would kind of clarify that process and outline it to the effect that we're reserving these 13 acre feet for this particular property to be sold as the these particular commercial lots are sold.
Okay, so maybe I'm
Yeah.
understanding this wrong then. So
I am too.
we take the money from them up front, 35,000, or we don't.
I
But we have that.
I don't think it can work that way.
It's just earmarked to the property for somebody to have when they
Yes.
request it.
I think you could say that we're going to reserve X number of acre feet for this development, but then when those building permit applicants come in, that's the time when the transaction would happen between the city and the store.
And so it'd be kind of like a first come, first served then or something? Or how would you, we have our guidelines, so that's going to limit somebody that can have lots of water. But is that how, because 13 acre feet probably won't be enough, but.
I just read this again. I've read it before. I guess I read it differently this time after hearing your presentation. And I think in the resolution, it does kind of say that. It's because it says up to 13 acre feet for the project. So I think they would do it based on when people come in, like if a specific store comes in and they need two, then they get their two, and the next one comes, they need one, they get their one. But if, once they get to that 13, they may have to come back and say, hey, we've built out 9 of our lots, but we're going to need some more water for the other 2. But they're basically authorizing up to 13 feet for the project, not
Okay.
individual.
All right.
I didn't read it that way the first time, but now after hearing you and asking these questions, I read it again, I think that's what it means.
Right, it's important for the transaction to be, the fee paid in lieu has to be paid by the building permit applicant
Yeah.
at the time of building permit application. We cannot make a commitment to a developer that developer can then speculate on and turn around and raise the price of lots by 100,000 because they have water versus those that don't. So the commitment cannot be to the developer, and we cannot take the developer's money. It has to be to, which means those projects are going to have to come and say, now please let me pay for it.
But we're basically setting aside 13 for that project. And there is a time limit on there too, in the resolution.
There's a time limit.
Well, we would draft the resolution how you want it drafted, but we just need to not allow the market to speculate on our asset.
I think it's important to have a time limit because a lot can change. And if we're going to offer it to them, then we want them to build it quickly, right?
And I think Councilman Graff had brought that up. If I recall correctly, I think it was him that brought it up in the last work session that it was of interest of the council to maybe have a time limit. So we talked through that a little bit, talked about what might be reasonable, what's asking too much. So we have put those in these draft resolutions as well. So I'm glad that came up as well, so we could discuss that and confirm with you that that's what we want.
So as we're talking about water and we're going to set aside acre feet for all these businesses, I am definitely pro-business getting water to come in, and we do what we can to make it work. But I have no idea how much water the city has to do for that process. It might be good to, and I don't know if the city knows, I assume they do, so that would be important to know.
Correct.
From my end.
Yeah.
Do we have 500 acre feet of water we can use for business or total or what, or, I know what I mean? That might be important as we're going through this process, because if we only have 50 acre feet of water to use for businesses, got to be careful with what we do. So I don't know what the answer to that is, or if you even know, Jared.
I don't know off the top of my head. I wonder if, Paul's not here right now, but
It has not been a good week for some people, and we're grateful
Yeah, I was
that Jared
hoping
is here
no,
tonight,
yeah.
but Paul was working on getting that number, but I believe he probably does have it, but he was called out on an emergency today, so we haven't got that number from him yet.
yeah,
We apologize
that's
for
one
not
I was
having it.
hoping to get with Paul this week, and I just have been not in the office as much as I'd hoped this week. So.
We promise to have a number before these resolutions come back to you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because absolutely that is very important. It's kind of a key factor. So, yep.
All All right, any other questions or comments about this?
Well,
Roger?
Sorry to prolong this, but I think part of what you're seeing is how, if possible, how desirable it is to know what the business is going to be and who the tenant is going to be, so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to subsidize or incentivize this particular tenant, and how difficult it can be when you have less detail. And that's your challenge.
So the subdivision that doesn't have any idea who's going in. So do we have, we have guidelines, as Jared's made a list of what we want to do. So that, and reading through them, it leaves it really just to our discretion, really, whether we'll accept their building permit or whether we'll accept that to give them water. It seems like, I mean, it's not real specific. I guess it could be argued, but.
It is your discretion, and we're trying to give you some tools that can help you channel that discretion so that you can use it consistently and based on a set of standards, but it does come back to you.
Well, and it's all that same conversation again of the chicken and the egg, because, nobody wants to come here if they don't have the water, but we don't want to give the water until we know who wants to come here. So it's that round circle of, I don't know. It's hard. But I agree, we want business and we want economic growth. We just have to be careful.
But at some point, we have to
We
give
have to-
water so that
Right.
they're serious about building here, right? Or
Right.
coming to Tooele. so.
Exactly.
And I personally think this is the perfect area for commercial development in the community, so I support it. I have the same concerns, though, as everyone else that we've brought up multiple times, so I think we still have a little bit. I agree with that. I'd like to know how much water Tooele City has for this specific development in general, and yeah, a few questions before we can really make a firm decision.
Okay, great. Next one is the request for a proposed RV park. So this project, it's an RV park. Obviously that's somewhat residential, right? But the request here, it's as if considered a commercial venture, right? So an RV park is a business in a sense of a business, right? So this request is for 6.5 acre feet of water. The RV park would provide 150 stalls. These would be 80% long-term, meaning stays longer than 3 months, and 20% short-term, which could serve, tourism and other types of travel. Capital investment would be about $20 million on the site. That would include the purchase of land, impact fees, and construction of amenities, a clubhouse, playground, dog park, recreational courts. Employment would be 1 to 2 full-time managers and 3 to 5 part-time employees. Their timeline for when they would want to complete this is the fall of 2023. So really they're looking out about a year from now to being up and running. And they wanted to point out also that this does consume less water than other types of residential, higher density residential, even single-family residential. It uses about a third the amount of water per capita as other types of uses. So, I think that it's an interesting one. There's some intricacies to this particular type of development because RV park would have to be in an industrially zoned area currently, and so they would need to consider zoning and particular changes there, or other looking at to change ordinances or being a little creative in that regard. But as they get into it, they'd like to understand if they are if they have an option for water from Tooele City as they look to develop.
So this one, I have concerns about the amount of jobs that it would bring. Even their high number was 7 employees. And $60,000, it says, is the highest a manager paid position. And then I have concerns, to me, this is more of a residential. It's not really something that's going to benefit the commercial side and the business aspect that we're trying to draw to our community. So I'm not in support of this, giving water to this project.
I guess my concern is we seem to have a bright line where, going to Councilman Brady's point, is for industrial and creation of jobs, that's a bright line. We can say, okay, that's a business that generates taxes and it's also lower usage. I fear with this type of a project, it's going to be a little bit more than we would typically give to a business, and then we have to compare dollars to dollars, and I just don't think it will match up. That's just my preliminary thought after looking at this.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Okay.
Okay. All right. Next one is water fee in lieu request for Burt Brothers Tire and Services, which they are looking to request 0.9 acre feet of water. They'd bring an estimated $4.5 million in new property value. They have projected sales of $3 million annually by year 3 of operations. And they are estimating 15 to 25 employees, ranges waging from $15 to $35 an hour. Expected to open in 2023 towards the end of the year. And wanted to highlight that they're a Utah-based business, and they are trying to serve local needs, trying to be part of a local economy and a local community, and that they seek to be very community-minded everywhere where they have operations. So, this one is a business who would seek to just contribute and be part of the community, and yeah, I think that's mostly all I have to say about this one.
They're requesting 0.9?
0.9 acre
They
feet.
just
For
got bathrooms.
bathrooms?
Right, yeah.
Check for flat tires with water, that's about it.
Yeah,
That's the kind of business I understand.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely in support of that one, for sure.
So am I.
I agree.
All right. Great. Anything else on that?
Nope, any other comments? Okay.
There was one other that's not on the agenda that was asked that I bring up as well. Napa, let's see. I'm trying to find what I needed here. Sorry. We had one other request from it's really the same group that is with Burt Brothers. They had an additional acreage there. That's Burt Brothers will go on one portion of their parcel, and then they have other portions. They're looking to explore options for another group. And I thought I had the thing pulled up with this information, but actually I don't think I apologize. I don't think I have all the information I needed, and maybe that's because I just needed to follow up with them and wasn't able to get there.
It's my understanding that Napa will be building a new building, and probably bigger than where they're at right now, and want to do the same thing as build a new building, just change locations, and they will need the additional water. My recollection, it was very low. Same thing that they're not using it for any manufacturing purposes or watering grass. They're using it for just restrooms.
And we did get a letter from them. It's lacking in some detail. Then we need to follow up and I think get a better number from them on those water rights. And I suppose we'll bring that back again when we have those other numbers. So I apologize for
So the
some
Burt Brothers
confusion there.
location, it's in process. Wasn't it down there like 2000 north, well, not 2000, but
Right
Yeah.
across from Popeyes and the industrial building.
2400, yep.
2400
Yeah.
north, yeah. Up at the east end of that road where they're separated them lots, is that where?
Actually going to be right next to the UTA park and ride right
Okay, all right.
They are actually ready to go. They're done.
Okay, they just needed the water.
Apple will just be to the east of them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jared. Any other questions before Jared? Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, our next discussion item is a discussion on a planned unit development amendment to Western Acres request by D.R. Horton. This is presented by Jim Bolser, the Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council members. I'd like to start by offering an apology. As I was putting the presentation together today, I realized that there was one item I had intended to include in your packet that I did not, for whatever reason. But I have printed it and distributed a copy to each of you here this evening. What I've printed for you is a copy of the standards proposal that was submitted for the original PUD. So there's nothing in this that is part of the new proposal. It is what effectively the baseline that we're working off of here. So that is what's been left in front of you. So this application has been filed. It has not begun the formal process yet, but it has been filed and is in process. This is for the Western Acres development that's located approximately 1500 north in Broadway. It's a very large project, more than 80 acres. The boundary of it is shown in red on your screen here. It is to the east of the movie theater and as well as the Overpass Point Mobile Home Park, and to the west of Copper Canyon Elementary. And as you can see, it kind of fills in that gap between the developments closer to Maine and the developments a little bit further east. It is as I mentioned, a very large project. This is rotated 90 degrees, but this is the conceptual land use plan that was submitted with the original PUD. So you can see it is a combination of primarily townhomes, but then also a little less than 100 single-family dwelling units as well. The ones in the lighter shade of yellow are the single-family units. The various other colors are different types of townhome units that are proposed for this project. The ordinance 2020-50 that approved the PUD was approved by the council just 2 years ago, almost to the day. It was the middle of December, in the second meeting in December 2 years ago, that established the PUD as well as the regulations. The ordinance 2020-50 was in your packet. The reason that ordinance was included was because it contains the provisions of what the PUD does. Just as a reminder, under our ordinance, a PUD does not grant any additional dwelling units. So if they're allowed 100, they get 100 before or after. What it does do is allow for changes to configuration. It allows for changes to aspects such as lot widths and setbacks, and if they want to do certain provisions regarding aesthetics or amenities or these sorts of things that differ from the base tenets of the city code, primarily Chapter 711A, which is the design standards for multifamily residential developments within the city. So the reason that that's important is two things. Number one, the package you have in front of you that I distributed this evening is what they submitted as the proposal for what they want to do. The other thing that's important about that is that when a PUD is approved, effectively the council is seeing what the end product is going to be. You're determining that up front in exchange for some of those reconfigurations and amenities and other things. D.R. Horton, the applicant for the PUD, which is under construction, phase one is under construction now. The second phase of the project is actually on your agenda later this evening for a subdivision review. So that we're effectively 2 phases into review of this, and I believe there's 7 or 8 phases, if I'm recalling correctly, overall. But they have requested an amendment to the PUD ordinance. A copy of the application was included in your packet as well that identifies the 2 areas that they would like to amend. One of the reasons we need to do it this way is because one of the provisions of that ordinance, 2020-50, which is a typical provision that we include with PUD applications when we have done them, is to say that, in fact, it's right before the table that establishes the PUD-specific provisions. There is a recital that specifies that anything that is not specified as effectively a revision to the city code provisions under the PUD defaults to what's in the city code. So effectively, if they don't establish a special provision under the PUD, it plays by the base rule of the city code. And that's the important point, is there are amenities there are aspects to a PUD that are not included within the PUD. And the reason why is because they're the base tenets of the city code. It's not, a PUD does not wipe away all of the tenets of development within a city code. It simply says these are the special ones that we're going to tweak for a different purpose in a specific project. Getting back to their application, they've requested 2 things. One being a change to, it's more of an aesthetic change, but it's to allow a vinyl siding product in addition to what they've already specified in the PUD. Now, that is one aspect that was specifically requested by the applicant in the PUD originally, was specific aesthetic exterior materials for dwelling units. The second thing that they are requesting is an amendment to allow for certain unit products within here would have carports rather than garages to accommodate the covered parking requirement. They would like to remove that requirement for the carport units and just not have covered parking either in a garage or by way of carport for one of the specific unit types. And so those are the 2 things that they are requesting. I want to be a little bit careful about how I say this because I don't want to make it sound like it's predetermined, because it isn't. But the base tenants do cause a little bit of pause for the staff in what they're requesting for a few reasons. We will vet those out more thoroughly and provide a more detailed explanation of that once we get into the formal process and it comes back to you for ultimate determination. One of the things that I think we have kind of identified as a concern is that if the council is amenable to this, which is your discretion, we would want to put a clause in that adoption to specify that it doesn't affect retroactively, so that the projects that are already going into the ground, which you have approved according to the standards of the original PUD with that expectation, remain with that expectation, and then what goes forward, you would have an expectation according to what's been amended. That's one item that we've kind of initially discussed as staff as a potential concern, but again, we've not taken this is a new enough application that we've not delved real deeply into much more than that. So that being said, that's the nature of the application this evening. We wanted to provide this to you so that it's not a typical item that you would see. And so we wanted to get it in front of you, allow you the opportunity to vet it out for yourselves, as well as ask any questions or provide feedback. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Chairman, Jim, I thought you mentioned you had a couple of points that gave you pause, and I wondered if one of them was the consideration that's involved in initial PUD and with an amended PUD application?
It very much is, but that's one that I want to vet a little more thoroughly before I make an open statement to the council as far as a position on the part of the staff. But certainly the relationship between an initial representation and then an amendment to that is something that we'll be weighing and considering as far as a formal recommendation back to the Planning Commission and Council.
Any questions or comments from council?
Just a quick comment. This sounds familiar to what we dealt with on the project a few months ago, where they were talking about the percentage of a stone, and it always causes me pause when we make a change that affects a lot of things, and aesthetics are aesthetics, but they're important, and so that would be something that I would be concerned about. And I understand that there is a cost increase to that, but there's also an aesthetic value to our community that I think we should be cognizant of. So, yeah, that's just the one point that comes to mind.
Yeah, and if I can follow up to that point, just as a point of not really clarification, because you explained that very well, but one of the main aspects of that application that really, and I apologize, I meant to put up the table. There's the table of PUD specific provisions that are in that ordinance. One of the specific criteria or considerations with the project that you're talking about was the fact that that was a specific mathematical equation, and we were able to determine through some practicality and some actual review that math probably didn't work as well as we thought it would, and so there was some additional basis to it beyond aesthetics, but certainly aesthetics were a part of the conversation, as you will all recall.
What's their reason they want the change? As they said that? Is it just about the cost, or is it something else?
There is, if you look in the application, in fact, I'm going to try to pull it up real fast as I'm talking.
I read that, I don't get it.
There's a very brief explanation specifically to the siding portion of it. That's, in fact, I'll just read the project summary on that. It says, proposed change to exterior siding to include new premium vinyl siding product that eliminates the negative aspects of traditional vinyl, including cracking, fading, and wind. It is tough, durable, and beautiful siding composed of materials that prevent ultraviolet degradation, chemical stabilizers to help prevent heat degradation, and impact resistance to prevent denting and dinging. The color is the same throughout, so it will not need to be painted in the future like fiber cement board, which is actually one of the allowed, as you can see here. So it looks, that one doesn't sound like it's a cost thing to me. It sounds like it's more of a preference thing, as well as just potentially a new product that they'd like to use. There is not an explanation on the application sheet regarding the covered parking. My understanding, and I hesitate to even say this because I haven't confirmed this myself, but my understanding is that there's a section that possibly has a conflict with a natural gas line that obviously you wouldn't allow structures to be over top of that line. But I don't know if that's actually the fact or not. I haven't confirmed that, but that's my understanding, is that's at least a consideration for the parking side of it.
That'd be good to know, but if it's just a better product they're after and it's going to be the same thing, I don't see a big deal for the siding.
If we're eliminating the 50% requirement, though, of brick and stone, I do have an issue with that. I don't mind that being added as material.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a change to the percentages. So what you're seeing up there as far as specifically, if you look at the bottom half where it says exterior materials, eliminate the 50% brick, that actually is already in place. It would just be adding this new material to that list of potential materials. So it wouldn't change the proportions or anything. It would just be an additional material type that's possible.
Are you the applicant? You can come up and we'll ask you questions if we have any. Is that okay with the council?
Thank you. My name is Mike DiCarlo. I'm with D.R. Horton. The main reason for this is directly related to the cost. This plus the carports will add almost $10,000 per unit throughout the whole community. Well, for those that have the carports, it'll be another 3,500. But for for the siding, to go from cement board to vinyl will save us about 6,000 per unit. And we're trying to stay in line with one of your and the Planning Commission's challenges is to make this project or this community affordable to the residents of the city. And so we look at every avenue we can to reduce our costs. And as you know, supply chain costs have gone up, and the cost of cement board and the labor related to that has gone up. And so we're always looking for ways to reduce our costs and pass that on to our residents. An affordable home to us allows us to sell more homes, to be absorbed into the market in a timely fashion. So our project will get built out and completed and won't be just sitting around, because we'll actually have homes to sell at a reasonable price. And that's one of our big missions as a company. I brought the sample of the product. It's actually really a good product. From the street, you wouldn't really see much of a difference between that and cement board. The advantage of this is it takes a lot less labor intensive to install it, but it is a much better product than the stigma with a traditional vinyl product. So that's.
Any questions?
I'm going to be honest with you.
Honesty's good, so be honest.
I'm always honest. I'm not a fan. My son just bought a townhome, which I think was overpriced, so I'm all about affordability. But I think there's a lot to be said for aesthetics, and even good vinyl looks like vinyl. So I'm not opposed to having some vinyl addition with something else, but cement board looks better, in my opinion. And I think we've had a lot of discussions about aesthetics, and the one you're referring to, that's what I wrote down too. And we had a lot of conversation, and I realized a lot about was percentages, but it was still about aesthetics. And I want people to be able to afford their home, but I want that to look nice and be in a place that they're proud of and that looks good in our town. And so I'm not a super huge fan of that, but it's a personal opinion. So, yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
He needs to sign, don't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you'll just sign the paper up here, sorry I didn't tell you that, that's my fault. I tend to agree with Councilwoman Manzione, and the look of it does matter, and I have some concerns about the vinyl. Does the carport elimination concern anyone, or? I have some concerns about that. If I were to live in a townhouse, I think I would prefer to have a carport. I understand that it's an additional cost, but once again, this is my personal opinion, so I don't know how the rest of the.
And maybe he can answer the question that Jim didn't know. Is it because of a gas line?
No, it's also the cost. It's another $3,500 per unit for those homes that have the carport.
The carport.
I know D.R. Horton's a giant company. Do most consumers prefer to have a carport? Have you found that?
I would think so. Again, we're just trying to make it affordable.
Right.
The gas line's not really an issue. We're able to talk to the civil engineer, and we will just move the covered parking to nearby spaces that are not in that easement. So.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Council, I just, I'm going to be the Debbie Downer, sorry. But as I had, listened to this Zoom meeting the other day on the land use, different organizations attended those meetings. So there were elected officials, staff, developers, builders, all kinds of people there giving their opinions. So of course there was a big difference in some opinions. Something came up that was discussed lightly, but I don't know where this will go. And that is that when a city changes ordinances to lower the price of those homes, to say, well, we won't require this and we won't require the stone, we're going to just let you do vinyl, or we'll do something cheaper. What is there that can be put in place to make sure that the developer does lower the cost for that consumer and doesn't just get a bigger profit. And it's unfortunate that we even have to think about that. And again, I don't have the answer. I don't know legally what there is that we can do. The other item that came up in this is that if cities don't address these issues and allow things to be cheaper, your legislature will make those decisions for you. So they're just items that we're going to have to talk about and figure out how we make it all work. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I guess my final thought, kind of taking that all in consideration, when we make changes to, the exterior materials and we widen the options, my fear is it becomes a race to the bottom in regards to design, because everyone wants to put a quality product out, but everyone wants to do it at the lowest price to maximize profit. I mean, that's how it works. That's how our system works. But my fear is over time, the quality, and not just one build, but across the board, all starts slowly going down. And at the end of the day, those are buildings that people live in for as long as they can, and that's what we look at. And so I guess the comments already made go to what I think, and it does give me a lot of pause.
And I guess one of my concerns about the fencing, and that is the vinyl, the wind blows here a lot, and it's quite strong. And I know right by my home up on 700, every big windstorm, they're replacing the vinyl fence. Is this stuff that you're talking about, is it good enough to stand up against 50, 60 mile an hour winds?
Yeah, I don't know the exact rating, but it's got, it locks in place. So, it locks in place. And so it's supposed to be much more durable for wind and everything else that would be thrown at it. But,
And again, I'm just throwing that out there.
yeah, we put
'Cause
it on.
I toyed with putting it in my yard, vinyl fencing, but around me, the people that do have vinyl fencing, they're replacing it a lot. And if you go down 36 and look at that subdivision on the other side of 700, you can see the effects of that. Literally after every windstorm, there's broken. So I don't know, I think we need something strong, especially out there in that area that we're referring to, because that's open space out there.
Well, and this is vinyl siding. We see it blow off houses too, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Over the years, but it looks like it locks on the same as the stuff that's been from my house from 30 years ago, but I don't know if it's stronger overall. I don't know. But I remember what the mayor brought up about the legislature taking over and doing things. I heard things about that if we don't do something about affordable housing, they will.
Yeah,
So,
that's been a threat.
but I don't know how you make, I mean, that's a giant can of worms, 'cause, yeah, when that starts happening, yeah.
All right, any other discussion on this topic? Okay. We will move on to item 6, which is a closed meeting. We do have a closed meeting tonight to discuss possible litigation, so I will entertain a motion to move to a closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilwoman Manzione, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. We will reconvene in the upstairs conference room.